Hello and welcome back to the Leading Yourself podcast. Today, I am super excited. I've been looking forward to recording this podcast episode for a long time. I have a very special guest with me today. We are doing a career series, and I thought there's many people in my career that have had a big impact, that have been pivotal in my own career, and I want to bring those people to you. And as I was putting the list, I'm very fortunate that it was a long list, but I would say the person I'm talking with today was on the top two. It's someone that has been a sponsor, a mentor, a coach, has played so many roles in my career. And I'm so excited to have with me Charlie Ackerman today. Welcome to the podcast, Charlie.
Thank you, Carolina. It's certainly an honor and pleasure to be here with you. It's great to know that you've designed this podcast, certainly installed it, and now you're scaling it around the world. Congratulations to you. And again, just like you mentioned, you carry a very special place in my heart too, because of our experience starting all the way back into the 2007-2008 timeframe. So that was some very, very good years for your development, and I'm certainly impressed.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. I can't believe it's been that long, but it has. It's been a long time. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm so excited for people to get inspired by you, to learn from you. I've been very fortunate to have you as part of my career squad. And as I mentioned, you've been so instrumental in so many ways. I've learned so much from you that I'm excited to now be able to get our listeners the opportunity to also learn from you and be inspired by you. So before we jump in, I have a lot of questions that I want to cover today, but why not start with, tell us a little bit about who is Charlie Ackerman, a little bit about your background so people can create a context for our conversation today.
Well, I think where I'd start is like most people do, a little bit about my family first. I'm married. I've been happily married for 38 years. I've got 2 children. I've actually got a grandchild now. So everyone around the household is currently healthy, and we're certainly grateful for that. When it comes to the career, I think that one of the things that defines me is early on, when I got, out of school and ultimately got married, actually my family was an inspiration for my career. I didn't really know and understand that, but when in my late 20s, early 30s, I read the book Purpose Driven Life. And that book helped encapsulate so many values that I wanted to drive and aspire to. So it doesn't matter then or even now. When I started off, graduating from Mississippi State, I graduated at a point where I was working on a farm, trying to pay my way through school. And then I moved to a company called United States Gypsum. I was personnel supervisor and safety engineer at that point in time. I did that job for a few years. Recruiters came calling at that point in time, and I moved to an organization called Aston Dryer Fabrics. And when I was there, I was also in HR. I was the divisional HR leader for 2 facilities. And I found it quite interesting that as I started off, I really didn't know the magnitude, the scope, and the impact that I felt that I could make. So I leveraged what I thought was important as all the lessons from the plant manager of the previous job. He just basically said, get out on the plant floor and help the company make money. That's all he said. Just get out there, right? So that was my drive. That was my drive every day, to get out on the plant floor. The leadership in that facility then turns and tells me, Charlie, we've never actually seen an HR person stay on the floor as much as you. Well, what's going on? And I said, well, frankly, now that I'm out there, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to work in manufacturing. I'd like to actually help run this organization directly. Well, it wasn't very long until that actually happened, and moved into manufacturing, was ultimately responsible for one of their larger facilities, half of the operations. And that turned out to be just an incredible experience for about 3.5 years. And that opportunity actually launched the opportunity to come to Bosch, because what they were looking for in Charleston, South Carolina, they were looking for some restructuring. There was an opportunity to change that organization, and I was hired into the Bosch organization with this functional background, a variation of HR and operations, and joined them. And it was great immediately. By joining that organization, I felt that the organization's culture fit me perfect, and I felt that I fit that culture perfectly, and was in Charleston for 7 years, then took a stint into Germany. I did my international assignment there, and then, of course, turned around and then came back to the corporate organization at Bosch in the Detroit area, Detroit, Michigan area for 17 years. So that's the journey. That's a little bit about me. And now I'm semi-retired. I've started my own consulting business. It's Charlie Ackerman Consulting. And I've been amazed at the number of people that continue to call, and I can continue to help. That's it.
Thank you, Charlie. That's an incredible journey. I was very fortunate to cross paths with you while at Bosch. And as I mentioned before, I learned a lot from you. And the first question I have for you, during your career, I mean, you were in HR, you were international, you were in manufacturing. Was there any pivotal decisions or turning points that really changed your trajectory in your career? Aside from the decision of, I want to go and be in manufacturing and be actually driving the business, was there any other pivotal moments in your career that you said, this really changed the trajectory of my career?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off is like anybody, first starting off, you really don't have a very good idea about what you want to do. The only thing is that you study business administration, and then you go out and you start looking for people that, I want to be that person. I want to aspire to do something similar to what I can see in that person. So typically it's whatever you see and you want to try to emulate. I was no different. I did the same thing. I felt that when I first started off, I wanted to be a plant manager. That's what I felt that I wanted to do. I just happened to be in HR at that point in time. So when I first moved away from United States Gypsum and then moved into the Aston Johnson Group, I was very, very fortunate to have many wonderful mentors. No doubt about that. Okay. And some of those that mentored me was Jim Gray, Cindy Pennington, Harry Hill, Bill Finn. These individuals shaped not only my focus around the operations, and I say operations now because truly end to end is more than just manufacturing, but rather how to emphasize what I was really good at. And that is all of the systems, the structures, and the processes around people. I just happened to say that, hey, I wanted to be in manufacturing for a while. And that was very ignorant. That was a very ignorant side of just not understanding. So the two stories that I would say from Bill Finn challenged my ability to be courageous. That's exactly what he did. And I reflect back on a time when he was challenging me to look at a system out in Salem, Oregon for helping the state of South Carolina implement some workforce development strategies. And I was still in HR at that point in time. And he sat me down and he said, Charlie, you visited Salem, Oregon. Do you know what to do in the state of South Carolina? And I said, yeah. He says, well, why are you not doing it? And I said, well, I don't think I can. And he says, why not? And he says, do you know who to call? Do you know who to contact? Do you know how to pick up the telephone? And I was like, oh my God, yes, I know. I have a yes for every answer to his questions. And he says, that's the point. You have to do it. And so he also told me that if you do anything in the business that aligns to business and positive people impact, then you do it. You never ask for permission. You just proceed because you know what's right. And everything else will work out fine. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two was Harry Hill. When Harry Hill encouraged me to go visit with an individual that helped me move away from my goal of working as a general manager, manufacturing general manager, back into the area of operations. And what Harry did is that Harry had such a great belief in me and my potential. He said, I can't help you any longer. I give you to somebody that I know can mentor you in this space. because I see the potential. I'm just not an HR person. And so that was the next lesson, is being able to give up and hand over to greater capabilities and competencies for the purposes of helping others. So those are the two big takeaways for the trajectory of my career: being courageous and then helping others be better than themselves.
Wow. I didn't know these stories, Charlie, but now that you're sharing them, I can see, you just describe yourself. The way I know it, like these things that you're sharing, you learn at one point from a mentor. You have role model, at least for the entire time that I've known you, and that's been a long time. When I think about you, I associate you with those things. So I think that is so powerful, because a lot of times we try to accumulate tips and resources and strategies. But to your point, you need to do them. That's the only way you actually hone in those things and they become part of who you are and define you as a professional, as a leader. So powerful. And talking about that, what do you believe makes someone a great leader? Not just by title, but like a true leader.
Yeah. Well, that is a really, really good question. And I'll try to keep it simple. I have heard so many different ways for marketing people to write books and come up with unique ways to describe that. But first off, leading is all about, in my opinion, being out front. It's the word lead, and this whole concept of leading from behind. Well, it's possible, I guess, but the question is, have you really tried it? Now, I understand the concept of leading from behind. It's more around being somewhat of a servant leader. That's a different way. So my point is, there's different ways to categorize it, write about it. I believe in servant leadership. But at the end of the day, leading is about an individual that has a very clear direction. They almost have a very clear vision about what success looks like for the entire group of people that collectively come together for a general purpose. And what they do is they enable everyone within that body of common interest to achieve that goal, whatever that is. And so I think that there is a very clear recipe for success, and we can talk about that later. I've got a definition of what that is, but I truly believe that leader and leadership is so important to truly understand. And what's also interesting is it's different than being a manager. It's different than being a supervisor. It's different than being a coach. And it's different than being a mentor. They're all different, and they have prerequisite domain competencies embedded in each one of those. So to be a great leader is to truly be out front saying, come go with me, and I'm here to help support you. That's what a leader is.
Thank you for that. I agree with you. I think the word leader is used in so many different contexts, and you can pick any kind of book around leadership, right? And a lot of times we try to over-engineer the concept of leadership. It's a simple concept. Doesn't mean that it's easy. I think it's a never-ending journey and a really tough one where you're constantly learning, and a lot of times learning from mistakes that you make along the way. But I have to say, you're one of the people that I've learned the most about leadership, in you being a role model and mentoring and coaching me throughout my career. And I'm so grateful for that.
Well, I appreciate that. We have a common friend and colleague, Henry Evans, that taught me once about the topic of, through accountability, but then also at the same time, leadership. He used this phrase, and I picked it up from him. It's intellectually simple, behaviorally complex. People say, oh yeah, I got that. Okay, then let's walk the path. And I thought that was very astute on his part to be able to capture that, because it truly is, in many different ways, many terms and terminology within the business field is intellectually simple, but it's always behaviorally complex.
Now, I want to talk about career pathing, career development, and this is something I firmly believe on, and I think I learned from you, and you helped me at least figure this out. I've had lots of career conversations with people in my career. You've had more than I have, and you might agree or disagree with me, but I think in essence, there's two types of people. There's the people who are just waiting for someone to tell them what to do, to point them in the right direction, to tap them in their shoulder about an opportunity. And then there's the ones that take full ownership of their career and they take the driver's seat. They have a vision, whether it's specific to a title or not, that's a different story, but they know what they like, what they don't like, what they want, and they actively pursue that. And in doing that, I think this is an exercise you and I did, is once you have a clear vision, then you reverse engineer how to get there. So my question to you here is, in your career, I mean, you've been very successful to the point of being the CHRO for Bosch in North America. What are some strategies that you use to identify and pursue opportunities that were aligned with your goals? And how did you kind of design and engineer your career? Because I think you've been very intentional and very successful at the same time. Can you share a couple of strategies or the one thing that was most instrumental in being able to identify and pursue opportunities that align with your career goals?
Yeah, I can. And first off is that one of the strategies that I know that you have adopted, whether that was natural or it was through conversations that we had. If you'll remember, one of the things that we did is that we used what I call the CHRO model, which is knowledge, information, responsibilities, accountability, and authority. Position that you're in, or any position that you're going to be going to, it houses certain decisions that are the basis of your success, whether you make good decisions, bad decisions, or no decisions. Do you have the knowledge to make that decision? Maybe so. Do you have the information to make a good decision? Maybe so. Do you have the responsibility to make that decision? Are you accountable, and do you have the authority to make the decisions? When you begin to see it, in my opinion, as a strategy so clearly, and you help an individual see it so clearly, they all of a sudden have this epiphany in their head and they go, oh my God, I can do this. And that is what I love to do. I love to help people see the clarity of breaking a position down into key deliverables, which is their decisions for how they would operate in their career. Their stepping stones is what we've called them, right? Now, the other side of it, I really appreciate what you said is, and I would totally agree with you. When you start thinking about an individual that says, I know where I want to go, there's a clear destination, or at least it can be fuzzy. As an example, if you and I were to say that we're going to both go out to Irvine, California. Well, we generally know where Irvine, California is, right?
Right.
Well, how are we going to get there? Now, you have to drive your car and I have to drive my car, right? Well, what kind of car are you going to drive? What kind of car am I going to drive? Okay. Where am I going to stop along the way? What route am I going to take? See, the point is the journey will ultimately be very specific. The person that can best define that journey, those are the ones that will meet their levels of expectations. The other side of it too is like this, is that if you're in the car, do you have your hands on the wheel, literally making the decisions of where to turn? Or are you in the driver, are you in the passenger seat saying, where are we going to go? What are you going to do for me? Where are we going to stop? If you take that position like you're traveling as a passenger for your career journey, you'll never probably achieve your intended goal or your state because you're always looking to somebody else. Notice again, it's all about visualization. When you begin to visualize your journey, it becomes clear. So that's my strategy.
Yeah, I love that, Charlie. And I think I learned this from you. I think it all starts with that clarity and the direction and the intentionality and taking the ownership, because no one is more vested in your success than you are. And we all have different definitions of success, right? And I think a lot of times you certainly can talk to people who have reached a similar destination than you and ask, how did you got there? But I think if you were to ask 5 different people, you will get 5 different answers because there's no one route to get there.
Exactly.
You need to make it your own.
It has to be your own. I was so excited, when we first, got to know each other. I think it was I'd say probably 2009 or 2010, you came and you said, hey, I'd really like for you to mentor me. We sat down, we developed, your particular plan. And I've never seen anybody that moves so quickly to detail out your career expectations. You literally mapped it out and you were very proud of that. And the thing is, what I loved is you didn't overthink it. That was the whole point. You didn't overthink it like, oh my God, if I go back to Charlie and what if I didn't do it right, or something along those lines. No, you openly, this is the way that I felt. You came back to me with an open book, ready to collaborate and say, did I get it right? And believe me, there has to be a certain level of humility as well by reaching out to people and saying, hey, listen, I've never done this before. I've never done it. It's okay. And I think that that's been one of your indicators of success is your ability to connect with others and your ability to be very humble and very open with accepting feedback from others. It's been one of your hallmarks. It really has, Carolina.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. And as I said, you've been super instrumental in my career. In fact, the reason why I am where I am today, I owe it in grand part to you, right? You are the one responsible for me moving to the US, for example. You saw something in me that maybe I had not seen yet in myself, and you put me in the right place where you knew I was going to be challenged, I was going to grow, I was going to have the biggest opportunities. And I will be always grateful for that big role that you've played in my career.
Thank you.
Talking about careers, what do you think most people get wrong about advancing their careers?
I think that's quite interesting. I have a hypothesis about this.
Okay? That's all what we can have, right?
Yeah, exactly. Here's my hypothesis. Oftentimes people come to me and they say, Charlie, can you help me develop a career plan? Do you know what they're really asking? Can you help me get a job? It's a big difference if you think about it for just a second. And even right now with my consulting business, there are still people that are not in the world of HR, oftentimes that come to me and they only understand one element, not a career plan of the stepping stones that get them to ultimately where they want to be, but rather, I just want that next job. And that next job is going to be my dream job. And that is the gap. That is the gap between, somebody just asked me to have a job. Can you get me a job? Or develop the career plan? And they're two distinctly different things. So, and I will tell you that oftentimes now that I've been in my consulting business, I'm very bold in my question at the very beginning. Do you think that our discussion is here to get you a job? Or do you think that you're walking away with a career plan? So I do that at the very beginning, and then I help them walk through the difference between the two.
Yeah, two very different things. And I don't know if you've had this experience as well, but one of the things I see a mistake a lot of people make is they look to that next job as the destination, right? And I always tell people, you still have, unless they're close to retirement, but most people, when they're having those conversations, they still have 5, 10, 15, whatever number of years left in their careers. And I always seen every job not as the destination, but as a stepping stone. And that helps look at that opportunity from the right lens of asking the right questions, like what skills am I going to be able to develop? How is this preparing me for the step after? Always thinking 2 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. Do you feel do you have that same impression when you talk to people about career plans?
I do, Carolina, and that's what I try to do is I try to help them understand every position that they have, they are going to gain new experiences that they've never had before. And they can say, oh, yes, I have, but no. There's different people, there's different environment, there's different systems, there's different structures. The size of the business is everything. The complexity of the business is totally different. So I would just say it, as we both know, there are different functions of a business: manufacturing, sales, research and development, quality, HR, finance, logistics, purchasing. Every one of these areas is actually in the field of business. It's quite interesting. So it's kind of like the baseball field, right? It's an athletic field. it's baseball. And if you can say you want to play baseball, but there are positions if you really want to be excellent. And it's the same thing. The business field has different areas of, I would say, competencies first. And in order to achieve the level of excellence for that business, you better know quite a bit about each one of those areas. Hopefully, you have the ability to play in a number of the roles on that business field. And that's what I truly believe in, is making sure that when people go into a position, that they go into that position seeking experiences and wisdom that can actually be applied to any other one of those positions in that area. The more well-rounded that they are, the better general manager that they can ultimately be, regardless of the domain function that they're in, as an example within HR. Because what you do is that at that point in time, when you learn all of the roles, you begin to understand the interdependency of each role and the success of the team. So yes, very, very important.
Yes. Let me get a little bit more personal here with the next question. You retire from Bosch being the CHRO for North America. Now you have your own consulting business. We were talking about retirement offline before we started recording. When you look back in your very successful career, what is the one thing you feel most proud of?
Yeah, it's always a very tough question, to say, what the most proud of. Okay. But I would say it like this. If I look back, and you know this, you said it earlier in this podcast, the number of people or colleagues that I've helped advance their careers, it's in the thousands. I mean, it really is. If you look at all of the work that I did back at Aston, if you think of all the work that I did in Bosch, globally, helping individuals define where they wanted to go in their careers, being very genuine and authentic and giving them the truth about whether I thought that they were going to make it or not. And again, giving them the truth, making sure that it was digestible, soft and understanding and caring and compassionate. I know that that's very, very important, but they had to hear what I thought was most appropriate for their career. Oftentimes it helped them out. Oftentimes it came back and they'd say, that's not exactly what I wanted to hear, but I appreciate it. And I think that I'm very proud to have, I'd say, locked down on this model that it helps me really give the type of clear feedback to an individual in the areas of knowledge, communications, information, responsibility, and account. Once you clarify all that up for an individual, they begin to see gaps for themselves that they haven't even thought of yet. So I think that the model that was created, that I love to use now in my retirement, it still is a great model, and I still love helping people with that. So I'm just continuing to add to the thousands of people that I've helped already.
Yeah, and it always amazed me because, and I share this sentiment with you, is all about the people and the impact you make on people. Because when I think about Charlie Ackerman and your successful career, there's a lot of changes you've implemented, transformations you've drove, business results that you've accomplished and help enable for the entire business. I mean, the list of accomplishments it's miles long. But at the end of the day, when I ask the question, it all comes back to the people you touch. And that is something that for me speaks a lot about the human being you are, the leader you are. And it's something to all of us to reflect, right? A lot of times we get so narrow vision on the results and the KPIs, and which are all very important, and is the reason why we are in the roles we are, wherever you are, in whatever company, or if you're an entrepreneur or whatever. But at the end of the day, when you look back, what you take the most with you is the people you get to touch.
Yeah, that's true. Again, sharing something very personal, what you had started with, I think it's important for you to know, and I know that you do this as well, and that is, I get up every morning and I read my devotional, and then I also have reflection time. And this morning, I thought it was really, really quite coincidental, okay, that I was reading, and there was a comment that was made by Pope Francis, and it inspired me today. And I think what it does is I thought it would be important for you to hear about that too. And he says, we're all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you. And I think that that fully encapsulates exactly the feeling every morning that I have when I get up is, I going to be able to make a difference in somebody else's life, somebody else's career, and then they feel good about what I've done for them. So it's that's a little bit of a personal thing that motivates, inspires me, but it's true.
It's to an extent a life philosophy that you live by, and
Right.
you integrating everything that you do, and certainly is all of us who have had the privilege to be close to you and work with you, we've seen that side, and probably, as I said, right, when I think about you, I think about you as a leader, as a mentor, as a sponsor, of course, as a great business leader who drove lots of results. But the piece that I remember always is that personal connection. And despite the fact of how successful you were, or I mean, in a role like yours, you interact with thousands of people. But every time you interacted with someone, and I can speak for myself, you made that person feel seen and heard. And I think that's an ability that you have that is so unique, and something that I always have admired in you.
Well, I appreciate it. I thought for years that might get me in trouble because one of the things I used to love to do, and I know I had to ask for forgiveness. I love to hug people. I love to hug people's neck. You remember that? I mean, I'd see people in the office. Hey, man, give me a hug. And I didn't care, male, female. I didn't care. It's just, when people are around you in life and you just enjoy them to the fullest, it's just an expression of appreciation,
Yes. If you could go back in time, Charlie, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think that the advice that I would give to my younger self would be learning how to be more crisp and clear with my expectations of what a good job is. Okay. What a good job is. And there was I thought I was okay for a long time, but it didn't, put it like this. I started off at USG, United States Gypsum Company. Then I went to Aston and then went up to Bosch. Then I went to Germany from 2002 to 2005. If I had started, I would have loved to have started my career over again at that point in time because of being challenged to learn a new language, German, developing a new listening capability because of the foreign language that I was expected to understand, but not just listening differently early on and developing that clear sense of what is my target? What is my specific expectation of what I want to do? That came later. And I feel that I could have grown a competency better starting off than I did after some, say, 20 years of my career. It was only the last 20 years that I was able to really, truly understand as a leader what it means to have a well-defined expectation. Let me give you a contrasting element to that. Oftentimes, I have witnessed leaders in the organization want to rise in the organization, but they don't have a clear sense of what is expected of their business or their function. What they believe in is a concept that if I just gather the right people around me and I ask the right questions, they are smarter than me and then they will figure it out. Well, what if you have a team of 5 people and 60% don't know what they're doing? Well, the odds are you don't have the right people, or they may be telling you something that either correct, incorrect, not aligned, whatever. I truly believe that, again, about 2002 to 2005 timeframe was a huge epiphany for me. And if I had to go back to my younger self, I really would have done a much more thorough job in making sure that my expectations were truly clear, particularly working for a high technology organization like Bosch. They demanded it already. Make no mistake about that. I had to grow into that expectation. I didn't necessarily bring that to the table. So that's what I would say is giving advice to my younger self.
Such a great advice. And I think we all can benefit from that. I think I always say, using a Pareto rule, 80% of the problems in every organization come from either miscommunication or misalignment of expectations. And the number one reason or root cause for disappointment is not setting clear expectations. Because when you feel disappointed of others not meeting your expectations, typically goes back to you didn't do a good job in setting those expectations clearly up front. So I think that's such a great advice for everyone listening, regardless of what your career path is, at what stage of your career is. It's never too late, but the earlier you start, the better, because it's a muscle, right? It requires practice. It's not like you just decide, I'm going to be more clear, or I'm going to be better at setting expectations, and automatically you are. It takes a lot of experience and trial and error and practice.
It takes a lot. And that's what I was thinking is that, and you don't have to do it alone. Okay, that's an important element, is it can be an iterative process. As an example, and this, one of the things that we did at the Bosch organization was when we were launching BHS, the Bosch Human Resources System. One of the things that was a very critical and foundational element for what I think to be the success of the BHS system was a common framework of language around designing, installing, enabling, and optimizing systems and processes. And it wasn't one person that came up with that concept. It was a multitude of individuals that said there has to be a framework, that there's got to be a common system, there has to be common processes, and those have to be designed, installed, enabled, and optimized. And that was the closed PDCA cycle over and over again for achieving excellence. And once that framework was understood and installed, it was like great. People were running with it, and I was so, that was a happy moment that I think when everybody started using, that type of vernacular in the organization.
I still use it today. I use those words all the time. I use it as a compass on the way I approach work. It's so ingrained on me now as a result of that experience. And it definitely works. It gives you the right binoculars, to your point, to look at everything that we do. Such a great lesson learned, and a great structure and framework. So simple, it's sticky. It gives you the transparency, the clarity, the direction to get it right every time. And it's an ongoing cycle. So you're always improving, which is a mindset that I think it's so powerful, that continuous improvement mindset. It's never ending. It's always going to be done better. We can always raise the bar a little bit higher.
Always. Cost, quality, delivery, customer satisfaction, always improving.
Yes. Charlie, I want to be respectful of your time, so I have two more things before we wrap up. The first one, I always like to ask any guest I have in the podcast. We cover a lot today. I think you share a lot of little golden nuggets of things that people can pick and apply into their career planning and their way they look at their careers. Do you have any final advice or any final word of wisdom, something that we didn't talk about that you're like, I absolutely want people to hear this?
Yeah, I think, yes, I do. There's one thing, I mentioned this earlier, and that is oftentimes in my current position, as well as my previous positions, oftentimes people would ask me, Charlie, do you have a definition of what success is? And I've really given that some thought. And what I will do is I will tell you the 4 elements that I believe are critical to a person's ability to achieve whatever it is that they want. The very first thing is believe in a purpose that's bigger than one person can do alone. You really got to think of, what is that purpose that I cannot do by myself? The next thing is you have to truly believe in others, because you can't do number 2 without doing number 1, and vice versa. Okay. The third element or ingredient is believe in yourself. You've got to believe in yourself. And the fourth thing is that you must believe that you can achieve your purpose, which is different than number 1. So those are the 4 things. And if you directionally move, as an example, you say that you want to have a wonderful family environment. Well, you can't do that by yourself, right? You got to believe in others. You got to believe in that purpose of having that along with the rest of the family. You have to believe in the others in the family. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in that overall purpose of where you want that family to be in time. So I truly believe that everything that we put our mind toward in our faith system and our belief system will ultimately be achieved. And I offer that to you and everybody that listens to this particular podcast.
I love that, Charlie, because I think a lot of times we always think about the task list, right? The things I need to do and cross off. And no matter what that list look like, if you don't have that foundation of that belief you talked about, it's not going to take you anywhere. You're just going to be spinning your wheels or running, thinking that you're reaching the finish line. And then you look down and you realize you've been running on a treadmill the entire time.
Right. Exactly. And you can do it, whatever it is.
Yeah. It all starts with that belief. That is such a powerful way of closing the podcast. And before we say goodbye, I always like to ask my guests, how can people reach out to you? You now have your own consulting business. How can people learn more about that if they're interested in engaging with you? I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to find you, connect with you, and continue to learn and be inspired by you.
Yeah. Two major ways. Number one is I'm always available to LinkedIn. So please connect with me on LinkedIn, Charlie Ackerman. You'll see me there. Second thing is that my website is www.cac-global.net. And I have my website out there, and I encourage you to look at it, see the services. And if you're interested, please connect with me through the link.
Awesome. I will put the link on the show notes of the podcast episode so everyone can easily find it. Just click and go check it out. Charlie, what an amazing conversation. I feel every time we chat, time goes by so quickly. I can't believe we've been here for an hour. I really have enjoyed this. I'm so grateful that you make the time for us to have this conversation. I learned new things about you today that I didn't know. As I mentioned before, always grateful for the pivotal role that you've played in my own career. And I know a lot of people feel like me, a lot of the thousands of people that you've touched across your career. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Carolina. It's been an honor and a privilege. Just like I'd said, it's great being connected with you. And it's even more important to be able to see you so positive and scaling and you just having fun. Greatly appreciate the opportunity today.